While Trump's team plans his transition back to the White House, the president-elect is also awaiting next steps in multiple criminal and civil court cases. Trump is scheduled to be sentenced in New York on November 26 after being convicted of falsifying business records to cover up a hush money payment. Meanwhile, federal cases against Trump in Florida and D.C. are also now in limbo as the DOJ weighs how to move forward. So let's take a legal deep dive into Trump's criminal cases. Joining me once again is Hector Diaz of Diaz Law. All right, Hector, a lot of people are wondering, as president-elect, does Trump have the legal authority to just pardon himself and then fire special counsel Jack Smith and end all the criminal cases? So
that's a lot to unpack. Let's back up a little bit. The win for Trump meant the difference between going to the White House versus possibly going to prison. And he knows it. He absolutely knew this, and it was important, I think, in terms of some of the delays that were going on, the continuances, trying to drag this thing out as far as possible. The Department of Justice has a policy of not prosecuting a sitting president. Okay, so you've got those two cases in Florida and in Washington that are going to wind down. They just are. And they're not going to do it. They can't go to trial before January 6th, and those are going to go away. Okay. So then what's going to happen to, these cases, and is he obligated to continue forward with any of them? Well, there are two other cases. You've got the state of New York, where he, in fact, was convicted. And we talked about this on the show, that he was convicted for several counts. So that's already happened. Right. He still has a sentencing coming up this month. What happens there? And these are really uncharted waters. We're going to see a lot of back and forth here, but I think what ultimately happens, what his lawyers are doing right now, is they are pressing the DA's office in New York, saying, DOJ has a policy that you don't go after a sitting president. This is the same issue here with the state. You got to let this go. So what we may see is, there's some back and forth here. Ultimately, the convictions probably will stand, but maybe some kind of monetary fine in the New York case. Okay. Georgia case, that's dead in the water. I don't see that prosecution gets off. There's too many problems with the DA in Georgia, all these issues in terms of whether she had a conflict of interest. I think that's also going to wind down here in the next month or so. Okay, so ultimately all this, and on top of all the strategy to just delay and push, it seemed to work in his favor. Huge win, not just for the presidency, but making these cases go away. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to move on to another big, very high-profile case. The Menendez brothers have a chance at freedom after the LA County District Attorney recommended a new sentence. Now, Dateline will have an in-depth 2-hour update on the case tonight. Here's Keith Morrison with a preview.
A sensational story we thought was over may soon have a new ending. The wealthy sons of Beverly Hills, convicted of murdering their parents, are suddenly everywhere.
I knew that this could upend the whole case.
I think people fabricate things.
We were up against the myth that boys aren't sexually abused, and upstanding people like my father aren't child molesters.
No one had ever seen televised testimony like this before.
We're viewing everything that happened back then through a different lens.
With eyes glued once again to the courts in Los Angeles, where Eric and Lyle await their fate. In a dramatic move, the DA recommended they be resentenced.
That the life without the possibility of parole be removed.
It's time to give them the opportunity to live the rest of their lives free from the shadow of their past.
Freedom might be in reach for Lyle and Eric Menendez.
All right, and then to add to all of that, now there's a new twist. There's a new DA who was voted in. So then, Hector, how does this affect the case when the former DA, who you just saw in that piece, was trying to re-sentence the Menendez brothers?
I think at first when we heard, okay, new DA, ran on a platform, going to be really tough on crime, and was maybe going to take a different position than DA Gascon, that maybe that might spell a little bit of trouble here, but I'm not so sure. I think that there's just so much public pressure here. So much has been made of this, this story in terms of the, Netflix special. Right, the celebrities going to back for them, all of it. Absolutely. I think that this is a train that has left the station. I think that they're going to have this petition resentence. The DA's office, I just don't think they're going to stand in the way of it. I think they're going to punt let the court decide. Then that DA can deal with more pressing issues. I just don't think that the DA is looking at this saying this is my #1 agenda item that I have to deal with in terms of Los Angeles crime.
So if he doesn't stand in the way, you think, then, I mean, but could this delay their chance at freedom?
Great
Because it seemed like they were so close.
Great question. He may want to get up, an update, and he may ask the court to allow him to get up to speed. He doesn't take office until early December, and that would be reasonable, I think. But I wouldn't be surprised if he just simply says, let's go, let's have this hearing. I do think that the court will grant the motion to go ahead and immediately resentence, find them eligible for parole, and then it goes to the parole board, the California Parole Board.
Okay. So regardless, you think that they will be set free?
I do. I think that a lot has come out. There's a lot of information in some of these petitions that support that they should be resentenced. Again, up to the California Parole Board whether they get released. But I think that happens. I think that a lot has been made of this. They have a lot of support, and I do see this happening. It is going to be interesting though to see if there's a delay. If ultimately, if he has to delay it, maybe that gives some of those that are opposed. Not everybody's on board here. There's some family members that are against this, and maybe that gives them more time to kind of to oppose it and to come in.
And even the old prosecutors. I mean, they, I was watching this morning on the Today Show. They were saying, there's still a lot that the public does not know. They're a lot closer to the case. They know it, and they still believe obviously they should remain behind bars.
Very interesting. It's going to be. I still think we go to the sentencing hearing.
Okay.
We'll have to see.
All right, Hector, you've been great analyzing those 4 cases. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.